Hello and thank you for joining us. This is Brian, your host of the Perish the Thought Show. The opinions of said host and our guests have not been sanitized or scientifically tested, so please consume at your own risk. Ladies and gentlemen, and whoever else is listening, back in 1970, my next guest was drafted into the U.S. Army at the ripe old age of 19. He served 2 years in the military, and one of those years was in the Vietnam War. We do a deep dive into the life of an infantry sniper, the things he saw, the things he endured, the things he had to do to survive while fighting the dark side of communism. We talk about the amazing men he served with and the damage the media, Hollywood, and politicians did to these great American heroes. Please help me in welcoming Dale Oilar. Dale Oilar, welcome, sir. I appreciate you being on with us. Also with me is Mark Pratt, and we're going to tag team interview you about your Vietnam War service. How's that sound?
Oh, sounds fine to me.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. And we have, like I say, we had an outline of some questions and things that I'm curious about, but any time through this, if there's a thought you have or you want to tell a different story, just stop me and we'll go down that road. There's no rules.
Sure,
So,
we can do that.
As much as you share, as much or as little as you, well, not as little because otherwise it'd be pointless, but got to share something. But
okay.
So, and one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, and Mark reminded me that you'd served in Vietnam because I had forgotten, because it's been a day or two since I've seen you. Mm-hmm. I have some other friends who have podcasts and some patriotic podcasts where they interview military veterans and things like that. And I've had one guy that served in Iraq on my show, and he's one of the podcasters that wants you on. But they're saying that generally speaking, it's hard to get Vietnam vets to talk about their stories and their time in the service. And so I don't know if that's a real thing. But anyway, we got you here, so no pressure.
Symbols they kind of had is they wore steel Russian helmets, which probably got a lot of GIs killed because Americans weren't used to seeing NVA with steel helmets on, just Americans. So, but that was kind of like Green Berets had their Green Berets. This NVA unit had their steel helmets. So. But like I said, I was fortunate we didn't have to get clearance to call in artillery on targets or airstrikes on targets or shoot anybody we saw that wasn't us out there. But like to kind of compare it to like the area around home here is up in the mountains. They supposedly relocated all the Vietnamese civilians out of there, but that would be like taking all these farmers and ranchers around here and say hauling them off down to Reading and then just turning them loose and telling them not to go home. Well, naturally, a lot of people went back home, but so there were civilians in the area. We took what I consider great pains not to harm any of them, or they were just dirt poor subsistence farmers. You know, what they grew is what they ate. I remember giving in our C ration, which is our food, they had sundry packs which had like cigarettes and candy and little sewing kits to repair our uniforms. I give an old mama son a sewing kit, which probably amounts to 30 feet of thread and half a dozen needles and a dozen buttons. You'd have thought I'd give her a brand new state-of-the-art Singer sewing machine. She immediately wanted to start repairing rips and tears in my uniform. I had to tell her no, save that for herself, you know. And we would also share our C rations with them, but the one rule on that was you had to open the cans and let them either eat it or go to waste, because if you didn't open them up, then the NVA would come in right behind us and take the food away from them. I got in a big discussion with the new guy. He gave Mama San some C rations. I told him to open those up and he wouldn't do it. So anyway, other than fight, make a big ruckus, we had a tremendous noise discipline. All these movies you see on TV where they're walking through the jungle and grab assing and talking back and forth, you didn't do that. You spoke in a murmur, actually, because it's harder to hear than a whisper. Nobody talked in a regular, normal tone of voice. But anyway, a few days after a kid give Mama San his sea ration, we killed some NVA and they had American sea rations on them. So that opened his eyes up pretty good.
Real quick.
What I was telling him was true, you know.
Well, let me back up a little bit, Dale, because I don't even know the reason, because I haven't studied history since I was in high school, really, which is sad. What was the reason for us being in that? Was that a war that was already going on between the North and South?
Well, yeah, Vietnam had been basic war constantly since World War II. The Japanese occupied Vietnam during World War II. Then the French colonized Vietnam, and the Vietnamese hated the French. And they finally defeated the French at Dien Bien Phu in North Vietnam. So America started getting involved trying to help the French out. Ho Chi Minh, the North Vietnamese leader, he was a communist, but he was also pro-American, and he was educated in America. But America was so afraid of communism spreading through that region that they considered it was stopping what they called the domino effect.
Mm-hmm.
He was afraid Laos and Cambodia and Thailand and all the other countries in the immediate area would fall to communism. So even though we didn't win the war, we did stop communism. Russia and China realized we were willing to go to great lengths and to stop the spread of communism. So even though Vietnam is now a communist country, I don't think any of the others are. So, but that might all change the way things are going now. China is becoming such a dominant world power that that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Just stopping communism. We were paranoid about communism, I guess you'd say.
Mark has a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what was your role in Vietnam? What was your job, I guess?
Well, I took start at the beginning. I took basic training at Fort Ord, which just teaches you how to be a soldier, march and salute and all that. And I threw my duffel bag up on my shoulder and walked down the street to another barracks and took advanced individual training, which my MOS was 11 Bravo, or like we like to call it, 11 Bullet Stopper, which is infantry. So I probably could have avoided being in the infantry. I scored real high on mechanical test and, of all things, code breaking. But they give you a series of questions like, when you wake up, are you disoriented or are you aware of your whereabouts? So I told them I was always aware of my whereabouts and said, what do you like to do? Play chess or go camping and hunting and fishing? So naturally, I told them camping, hunting. So you're going to be in the infantry. You start answering questions like that. I felt like I should be in the infantry. My brother was in the infantry and my one cousin was in the infantry. I had two other cousins there at the same time I were. One of them was in the CBs and another, and I believe was a clerk with the 1st Cav Division.
Now, what is infantry for those that don't know much about what all that means?
Infantry is the guy that's got the big heavy backpack. We call them rucksacks on his back. You carry everything you own. My standard ammo load was an M16 with a 20 round magazine. Most guys carried 14 extra magazines. I guess you could call me paranoid. I carried 21 extra magazines.
Hey,
and and
better
enough
be safe than
and enough
sorry.
spare ammunition to reload all of them. I wasn't going to go thirsty. I carried 7 quarts of water, where most guys probably carried about 4. I had at least 6 hand grenades, 2 smoke grenades, sometimes a rocket launcher, which is called a LAW, or light anti-tank weapon. Probably, well, you had your own battle bandages and kind of little medical kit. So I had one of those. I carried a 45 I took off of a NVA colonel we killed. It was an American 45 he had probably taken off of a dead GI. I finally decided I didn't need to pack that pistol around, so I turned it in.
Well, I can imagine all the
Yeah,
weight you're carrying.
we always thought we were carrying 90 pounds. We probably lightened it up to somewhere around between 40 and 50 pounds, I'd say. Like I was talking about steel helmets earlier, some guys wore helmets. Most of us preferred not to. All they'd do is fall down over your eyes or bust your nose when you got shot at or go rolling off through the brush anyways. They did have a rocket hit in the 101st Airborne Division chow line one time and killed a bunch of those guys. So they issued us all helmets because lots of head injuries, I guess. So when we walked back down off the fire base out into what we called the bush, everybody pitched their helmets down in a brushy ravine and put their bush hats back on. So, yeah, you had your dog tags. You wore one around your neck and one in a bootlace on your foot, because guys did get blown up, get so bad that hopefully they had at least one dog tag to identify them. Yeah, and well, I went into after I was in Delta Company, 3rd of the 21st Infantry, 196 Light Infantry Brigade. Slots come open to go to sniper school, so I got into sniper school. One of the basically only requirement to get into sniper school was you had to have at least 3 months in country in a infantry company. So they had another guy picked to go to sniper school. I talked him into giving it up to me. So he had a brand new wife at home. I told him, well, your mail's going to get all messed up. She's going to think something happened to you. So I convinced him. Me and him went to the lieutenant, and I took his spot anyway. So I spent, took 30 days of sniper school at Chulai, which was our division rear area, and then spent the last 7 months of my 1-year tour of duty as a sniper.
So that's, go ahead, Mark.
Did you do 2 years or 1 year?
1 year in Vietnam, 2 years in the Army total, yeah. So our sniper rifle, it was, I don't know what the M16 weighed, not very much, 5 or 6 pounds. M14 with a scope on it probably weighed about 11 pounds. I carried 100 rounds, 5 20-round magazines, match grade ammunition, and another 100 rounds in my pack, which weighed more than 22 magazines and the rest of the ammo combined for a 223, which M16 shot. So still had a pretty heavy load.
So how did that work with that job? Did you have specific assignments that were called down from higher up, or were you just sort of like with your company marching through whatever how did that, what does that look like? You'd like a day in the life of a sniper. I mean, it's aside from all the movie crap.
We had I don't know, probably about 8 snipers in the battalion. There's let's see, Alpha Bravo Delta Charlie, 4 full infantry companies, plus Echo had a recon platoon. If they felt like they needed a sniper, they'd call up the fire base and request a sniper come out. Usually the snipers are out all the time with one company or another. It may have happened in Vietnam. I doubt it. Snipers didn't work, at least Army snipers did not work by themselves. Sometimes we'd go out 2 snipers at a time, but we always took a fire team from the infantry companies. That would be anywhere from 4 to 6 guys. One of those would be carrying a radio so we could call. Communications is everything, you know. In case we got in trouble, we could call the company for help, or we called in artillery and stuff several times, which gives you a feeling of power when you're 19 years old and you can expend hundreds of thousands of dollars of artillery rounds just by making basically a phone call. But,
Yeah, I can imagine.
so we'd just go find a good place to set up. Our security team, they'd set up behind us, watch our back trail. We'd have the RTO with us. That's a radio telephone operator. If we, like one time we had a big rock formation we were watching. It's kind of like home watching for digger squirrels. You know, that rock pile's got a digger squirrel in it. It's going to pop up somewhere. This rock pile had a tunnel cut into the bottom of it. It was, the rock formation was probably 150 yards long by 50 feet high or so. We observed that for probably 2 hours. I had another sniper, my best friend, Dale Morrill. He is from North Carolina with me. Finally, he says, I see that little guy up there now. I forget the exact words. It's probably had a few more 4-letter words in it than that. But anyway, he was this observer, I guess, lookout. He was sitting up in the shade of a tree at the far end of the rock pile. We guess the yardage about 700 meters, which would be about 770 yards. And so I spotted for Dale while he shot. He knocked the guy off the rock, and I'd been watching the tunnel entrance, and that shot attracted some attention. Guy come out of the tunnel entrance, and I knocked him down. Another guy come up to help the guy Dale shot, Dale Morrill, and he shot him. So then there's like people, NVA swarming all over. We had a OV-10 Bronco, which is a observation aircraft, twin engine. It's got 430 caliber machine guns and shoots white phosphorus rockets to mark targets for artillery and airstrikes. So he got a artillery going on it for us. He said he killed 5 on the other side of the rock with a white phosphorus rocket. I seen it, at least one guy flying through the air when the artillery come in, and we observed, I think it was 24 NVA going out one way and 8 going out another way. And we got the feeling that they were gonna probably circle around and come back on us. So we kind of cut down straight towards where they used to be and hot footed it back to the company. So that
It's
even wrote up in the little 196 Light Infantry Brigade newsletter called
oh geez,
Chargers. So.
it's like setting an anthill on fire.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the best way to get away from artillery, run like hell, because they can't adjust fire fast enough to keep up with you. They won't let you do what you call John Wayne it. You can only adjust 105 millimeter batteries 50 yards at a time. We were trying to get them to do it about 200 yards at a time. They wouldn't do it. So.
Well, let me ask kind of just a deeper where my brain's going. You know, when it's war, so getting your head around taking another life, even, I mean, it's the enemy and that's what you've got to do, but tell me what that's like. I mean, after you did like your first one, I mean, were you numb to it after that or what's going through your mind?
I suppose it affected everybody different. The guys I was with, if we knew what high fives were, then we'd have been high fiving. We were pumped plumb full of adrenaline, and if if it wasn't for noise discipline, you'd be laughing and yahooing around there. We got them, they didn't get us. Good example of that is we had what we called mechanical ambushes. We'd take a Claymore mine. Claymore mine has 2 pounds of plastic explosive in it, 750 buckshot sized ball bearings on the front of it, kind of curve shape. You put the face the concave side towards where you think the enemy's going to come from. And mechanical, you rig up a tripwire to it with a battery to detonate it. And we set mechanicals out every night to protect our night logger position. So one evening, just before dark, one of the mechanicals went off. It was light enough we could go out and check it out. So we ran out there and we had 3 dead NVA. They were fucking new guys in country. Apparently they still had receipts for their brand new AK-47s, had brand new uniforms on, fresh haircuts. One guy had both legs blowed off. The other 2 were killed instantly. We didn't take any wounded prisoners. So squad leader put a couple 45 rounds in the wounded guy's head, but they also had brand new American hand grenades and tripwires and slick pins. They were coming down to set booby traps for us, and
Yeah, I was gonna say
ours got them first. So those are three good NVA right there.
right. Well, like I say, it's you want to go home too.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, like old General Patton supposedly said, the idea is you're not supposed to die for your country, make the other son of a bitch die for his.
Yeah, it's a sad truth, but that's what unfortunately you've got to do, and I get it.
And another thing I don't like, you see all these sniper movies or people talk about looking through the scope and seeing the man's eyes and everything. You don't see a man's eyes. Our sniper scopes were Redfield 3 to 9 variables. They had an automatic ranging system on them. They had tick marks in the crosshairs, vertical tick marks at 300 meters on 3 power. It was 60 inches apart, which was about the average size of a Vietnamese adult male from the top of his head to his crotch. So if you could, you turn the power till you had those tick marks, one on top of his head and one on his crotch, and you're going to hit him center mass sometimes. So 300 meters with a 3 power scope, all you see is a man out there. You don't see any detailed facial features or anything.
Well, Hollywood's got to sexy it up, so
Yeah, those were very effective out to 900 meters. That 700 meter shot we took was the longest shot I ever took on anybody. They were good rifles. Today's Springfield M1A national match is basically what we were shooting. We had match grade M14s that were semi-automatic only. It was at that time it was called the XM21. Navy SEALs still use a lot of them. I don't know, Special Forces kind of like them, but that's about the only units that use that rifle anymore.
Let's chat a little bit about how the media was treating the war then versus maybe comparing to what they do now. What were they accurate or were they off all the time? Politics is politics. I don't know. It knows no season. What was your?
I didn't find out till much later. The media, like one famous shot they got is a airstrike coming in with napalm, and the little girl's running out of the napalm naked and burned.
Yeah.
They say, well, that wasn't even an American airstrike. That was a South Vietnamese airstrike, but the media played it up like America had done that. I'm sure there's a lot of collateral damage like that. But yeah, probably just like nowadays, media's got to give their version over what actually happened. We did have, I guess you could call him a reporter. He was a writer for Playboy magazine, come out with us when I was still in a regular infantry company. And sometimes we'd put our night logger up at the hooch is in the area where our Vietnamese family lived. I say family, they were always old mamasons or little kids, and called this blind kids hooch, or little, probably 10-year-old boy that was blind there. He was always coming up, feeling you out and wanting food is what he was wanting. We had this one asshole give him some C4, that's plastic explosive, and he died from eating that.
One of your fellow
Yeah.
soldiers gave him that?
Yeah, a guy we had 2 platoons. We were in our company. We didn't number our platoons. We had killer platoon and kelso platoon. This guy was in killer platoon. My squad leader, when we got back up on the fire base out of the field, proceeded to beat the shit out of that guy. I don't know if he ever got in any kind of trouble for it or not. I didn't know the guy personally, but like I said, the writer for Playboy magazine, he wrote a story about that. I think that's in the August 1972 issue of Playboy magazine. If you get a hold of one, it's called Blind/Dead Kids Hooch. I didn't know that little boy. I didn't realize he had died. I read that article and I thought, no, that ain't right. Then I got hold of my squad leader. Took me about 35 years after we got out of Vietnam to track him down. He said, no, that article is true. That little boy died. So that's about the only kind of atrocity, I guess you'd say, that I know of that was committed by any of my battalion.
Yeah, I guess that was my next question. Did you do soldiers lose their humanity? And does serving in situations like this just reveal who someone really is, or do they lose their humanity?
I really don't think they do. We took care of wounds and injuries and stuff in the civilians we come across. If they needed help, our medics helped them out. Like I said, we give them food, give them those sewing kits. You wanted to get a good friend, just give old mama son a sewing kit. So I always made sure I had a couple of those in my pack. That was really impressed me, how much she appreciated something as simple as some needles and threads and buttons.
Well, it goes to kind of show you how people live under communism,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Well, they didn't care who was in charge, all they wanted to do is be out there in their it was a bamboo and thatch hut. Most of them didn't even have walls on them. And they just wanted to be left alone so they could raise their crops
and live and survive.
Yeah, that's basically what they were doing in the area I was at. We were nearest big city from us was Da Nang, which was about 40 miles away, something like that. But yeah, out in the mountains there, they were all on their own. They didn't have no help from anybody.
The residents that lived there, you mean?
Yeah, the civilians.
Yeah. Did you run into? Were you always in little villages, or were you out in the middle of nowhere?
We were basically in the middle of nowhere. Really high, rugged mountains with, I wouldn't say triple canopy jungle, probably double canopy. It was definitely densely forested, lots of brush. There were areas where we were in elephant grass or sawgrass. That stuff is 8 or 10 feet high, and each blade cuts you, puts little wounds on you. Every little wound you get, any kind of scratch or a thorn in you, gets infected almost immediately. I had a little black thorn in my middle finger on the middle joint. And the next morning I woke up, that entire part of that finger from the tip down to the palm was full of pus. I went to the medic and he took out a razor blade and said, I got to cut that open. I said, no, you ain't. You give me that razor blade. I'm cutting this open myself. I didn't really want anybody else whittling on me with a razor blade. So got that cut open and put some kind of disinfectant on it, I guess. Yeah, everybody looked like they were walking wounded over there because, like I said, when the medic got done working on you, then he bandaged you all up. So everybody had bandages of some kind on them. You only went to one medic, Mort, of all things. He was a mortician in civilian life, so the Army figured he'd make good medic, I guess. But you went to him with minor crap like that, he broke out a toothbrush and rubbing alcohol and started scrubbing it out and pouring alcohol on it. So from then on, you usually doctored the minor stuff yourself. And, yeah, Mort was by far the best medic we had. If you got really hurt, you glad to see him there.
Wow. Well, I guess that was one of my follow-up questions is like, what was the biggest challenge? Yeah, again, this is me. My knowledge is from the stupid shows I've seen on TV, and I'm sure they're not accurate in the least bit, but was it the weather? Just like you said, infections, every time you got cut, small cut, it was infected. I mean, what just daily hygiene? What was the biggest challenge that challenge to your sanity, I guess?
Yeah, just surviving the elements was probably 50% of it, I guess. You're always wet, whether it's raining or not. It's so humid, you might have 90 degrees temperature and 100% humidity. There's everything bit you, stung you, scratched you. There must have been 40 varieties of ants, probably every variety of mosquito known to man. Had 2 different leeches, had small leeches, tree leeches, I guess they were. They'd fall off the leaves on you. And then we had what we called tiger leeches. They lived in the streams we crossed. I had one get on my boot. He probably, when he was fully stretched out, he was probably somewhere between 12 and 14 inches long. I never had a tiger leech suck any blood out of me. They probably could have took about a quart. But the little leeches, they would swell up, fill up. They'd be as big as your thumb. I woke up one morning. In fact, we called that the leech logger. It was just absolutely alive with leeches. Everybody had leeches on them. I had one at the base of each thumb. Looked like I had 4 thumbs, but 2 of them were black, red looking dead. And leeches you see on TV where you got to burn them off and scrape them. You just plucked them off like picking a plum or something. They weren't stuck down hard, but you bled like a stuck hog because they put that anticoagulant in you to make the blood flow easier. So
wow,
you did bleed a lot when you had leeches on. We captured one NVA. He had like half a dozen leeches on his neck.
Oh God, no.
We were going to take him off, and he just like Mark saying, "Oh God, no," in Vietnamese probably. So he wouldn't let us touch him. One guy walked up with a bottle had insect repellent and a little old tube about like a anti-congestant mist tube, trying to think of like Dristan. He just squirted those leeches with that bug repellent, and they just basically melted and fell off. I think that guy would have joined our side right then. See how easy it was to get those leeches off of him.
Yeah.
But with that many leeches on it, it looked like somebody cut his throat when they come off of there.
Oh man.
Yeah, he thought that bug repellent was the greatest thing he ever saw.
Dale, could you I know you have a pretty impressive shadow box on your wall. Can you just look at that and tell us what is in there and tell us how you earn them?
Well, didn't really earn too much. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that patch. It looks kind of like a wishbone with flames on each end. And right above it's my sniper patch. And the patch itself represents back when they used to, hundreds of years ago, when they first started making rifles, they had matchlock rifles, and they had a burning, smoldering cord in it that would ignite the powder pan and then ignite the charge in the barrel of the muzzleloader. Those are called matchlocks. So as to symbolize always being ready, you burn your match at both ends. So that's what that represents, is a match burning at both ends.
Okay.
I know the colors have some significance. I've used to know what it was, but I don't remember. Then you move over to the center, the light blue badge with the oak wreath on it and the muzzleloader rifle in the middle. That's a combat infantry badge. You got to be in the infantry and actually be shot at to get one of those.
Well, that's not earned very well, is it?
And the interesting thing about that, your ribbons on your uniform, the most important ribbons are on top, say like the Congressional Medal of Honor, and then on down to Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Bronze Star. Descending order goes down. The combat infantry badge is worn above all of them, even the Medal of Honor. Even though I'd much rather have Medal of Honor. And that patch with the Grim Reaper on it right below the CIB, that was our unofficial company patch. Black Death, because we were a Delta company. After I became a sniper, I transferred into Echo Company. They were called the Assassins. I prefer to be associated with Delta Company. That's where I made my closest friends and stuff. Then the next patch over is 4th Infantry Division. That's a division I was assigned to when I come home back at Fort Carson, Colorado. So the patch, the 196 Light Infantry Brigade patch, is what would be my combat patch. Also, being there was 3 brigades in my division. There's the 11th Brigade of the My Lai fame. There's 198th Light Infantry Brigade, and the 196th. They made up the Americal Division. The Americal Division, pretty interesting division. It's a like a royal blue shield with 4 stars, which is a Southern Cross, their version of in the Southern Hemisphere of our Big Dipper. The Americal Division was formed up during World War II on New Caledonia. That's how it's got its name. General Patch was the division commander, and he put out a contest to name the division since it was brand new. He wanted to call it the Bush Division, and a private, I believe it was, come up with Americal, which stands for Americans in New Caledonia. It was the 1st Infantry Division to see combat in World War II. It was the largest infantry division in World War II. It was on Guadalcanal when the Marines were on Guadalcanal. I think the 25th Infantry Division, which my brother was in, was also on Guadalcanal. And I believe they actually suffered more casualties than the Marines did. But the Americal Division has never set foot on American soil. It was deactivated when World War II ended. It was formed up again in Panama, deactivated again, and then reactivated in Vietnam, and then stood down again after Vietnam. The 196th Light Infantry Brigade is the only active duty brigade out of the 3 that made up the division in Vietnam. My old infantry battalion, 3rd of the 21st, is based at Fort Wainwright, Alaska, up at Fairbanks. The 196 is based in Hawaii now. So anyway, going on down, there's I think a patch says Vietnam vet there. Aline bought that for me. And there's 2 rows of ribbons. Those ribbons are what you wear on your uniform, representing the medals you got right below them. Just below the 4th Infantry Division patch is another sniper pin that I had made up as a Christmas present to myself, jeweler down in Reading. And right below that is a expert marksmanship badge. You got 3 different levels of qualification with your rifle, and basic training. Experts, best you can do. To pat myself on the back a little bit, I was the only one to qualify expert in my basic training company. I think somebody might have shot my night fire targets because you couldn't see nothing, and I knocked all them down. It was total pitch black darkness shooting at black targets. So I think I might have had a little help getting that expert badge.
Hey, take credit where you can get it, right?
Darn right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, the first medal on the left is a Bronze Star. I'm not even sure why I got that. Like I said, took a pistol off of a dead NVA colonel. I know my squad leader got a Silver Star in that deal, so maybe I got the Bronze Star. Me and him we walked point together. We walked a 2-man point in the infantry companies I was in. We had so many booby traps. Actual point man, when he was walking, he probably never looked more than 50 feet ahead of him. He was always looking at the ground and the trail, looking for trip wires or pressure devices or anything that was just out of place. The Vietnamese, when they set them, sometimes they would put maybe 3 stones or 3 sticks in the trail or something, so their people wouldn't walk on it. Then we had the second guy. He was either called the slack man or the backup. He walked, immediately behind the point man, within 3 feet of him, and it was his job to look ahead and look off to the sides, looking for ambushes. And then the rest of the company, the standard spacing was 10 to 15 meters, which is a meter's about 1.5 yards. So you got a 50-man infantry company, they're strung out for over 500 yards down a trail.
And that's just in case something did go off. The rest of the
that?
guys. I said that's just in case something did go off.
Yeah, you get mortared or a machine gun open up on you, that would lessen the chances of a whole bunch of people getting hit. Like, we had booby traps, everything from hand grenades to mortar rounds, artillery rounds. I don't know, we had one guy step on, we figured it was a 40-pound anti-tank mine. You could judge how many pounds of explosives were in the booby trap by the diameter of the hole. You figured about 1 foot diameter for every, a 40-pound charge would be about every 10 pounds of explosives. So that made about a 4-foot wide crater that guy stepped on. John Quinn, he was an RTO, never found any of his equipment. Found 1 foot in a boot, his shoulder with part of an arm on it and some rib cage attached, and small pieces that we picked up in a pawn show.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was that. And even as far apart as we were spaced, there's 3 or 4 other guys wounded in that. Yeah, you didn't bunch up, that's for sure. The more guys bunched up together, the more inviting target it was. We never did figure out why Quinn tripped that booby trap. He was, like I said, an RTO. He was back in the middle of the formation, probably at least a dozen guys had walked over that, maybe stepped on it themselves. It could have been what you call command detonated, or they might have had a wire strung out in the brush with a guy hidden there with a detonator. RTO is a high value target. If you don't have communications, you're pretty screwed up. Usually there's an officer close by an RTO. All officers had their own personal RTO with them, so they probably thought they'd get an officer too if they got the RTO.
Would these traps, these booby traps, would they be equivalent to the IEDs that we see in the Middle East right now?
Exactly. They just changed the name. We called them booby traps. Now they call them improvised explosive devices. We walked up on a couple NVA. There was a dead 500-pound bomb. A DD Mao. DD Mao means a hauled ass run in Vietnamese. And they were sawing that bomb open to get the explosive out of it. So we put a bunch of C4 on it to detonate it, put a 30-minute fuse. You're not supposed to be closer than 1,000 meters to a 500-pound bomb. So we put our half-hour fuse on it with our charge and hauled ass back out of the way and waited, and it didn't go off. So we snuck back up there very timidly, I might say. And
yeah,
they had taken, the Vietnamese had come back and taken our charge off of it and was sawing it open again.
Holy cow.
So we put another charge on it and put a 5-minute fuse on it and run like hell and laid down in any hole we could find. I'll tell you, that's very impressive when a 500-pound bomb goes off that close to you.
I bet.
Well, this is how I can get my head around what that's like. You just think about these goofy little fireworks you buy for 4th of July. That it's, the size of your thumb, an M80 and what it can do. So, yeah, I can imagine the devastation that would cause.
Yeah, they have all kinds of things to tear up the human body, that's for sure.
Yeah.
One of your questions I see you had is one of the good things, I guess. I don't know how good it was. It was enjoyable. When I went through infantry training at Fort Ord, we went out on the M60 range. The M60 is a squad size machine gun, belt fed, shoots a 308 round like a lot of your deer rifles have. It military calls it the 7.62 millimeter NATO. So we spent the entire day on the range. We had old junk cars out there for targets. We had 25 guns on the berm. So they teach you to use a traverse and elevation bar like you have a choke point. Troops will be coming through. This is for nighttime. You got a bar that has calibrations that going horizontally on it, and a bar with calibrations going vertically on it that hooks to the gun and the tripod to keep it solid. So you sight in on that, write down what calibration you're on. Then in the dark, if you're getting attacked, you can use that traverse bar to sight in on that point. So they had all 25 guns sight in on one car out there.
Holy cow.
Put a 200 round belt of nothing but tracers in each gun, and 25 M60 machine guns shooting 200 rounds of tracers each. You could read a book by the light it give off.
That's quite the light show there.
and as usual, there's always that one kid in a family that's picking his nose or something. Had 25 machine guns. We had one that was shooting off in the South 40 somewhere. So, but the other 24 were pretty much on target.
That guy did not want to be in the infantry.
No, a lot of them guys didn't. They wanted to. I've seen one guy hug a drill instructor, drill sergeant, whatever you want to call him, start crying and wanting his mommy. that is the only time in any of my training that I've ever seen a drill instructor at a loss for what to do. No.
Well,
How
hey,
do you
probably
make,
he
how
probably
do you
never
make a
experienced
guy
that.
do push-ups that's hugging you and crying for his mother?
That's a whole different strategic the page in the strategic book.
Yeah, drill instructor Lowell. He was a good guy. He was kind of looking around for some help or something.
Kill this guy off me.
And naturally, none of us could crack a smile, or we'd all be doing push-ups.
So what did he do? How did that play out?
Finally, he kind of got the guy pushed off of him and told him to go up to the barracks. We were all sitting out in the company street cleaning weapons, and that guy just broke down. He finally got him peeled off of him and sent back up to his bunk. Still remember his name. Last name was Rose. I don't know whatever happened to him. Basic training, that, like I said, that just teaches you how to march and salute and do the military thing. And then orders come down when you complete basic training, and you go to your different advanced individual training units. Like, I don't know where he went. Some guys went into artillery, and some guys were truck drivers, and some went into mortars, and a lot of us went into infantry. Had another guy break down when he got his infantry assignment. He started crying and wanting to go home. And even when we went, if you went infantry, it was 100% guaranteed you were going to Vietnam. But this guy just knew he was going to be the one exception. Well, he got his orders for Vietnam, and he fell apart again. Wouldn't surprise me if he got killed over there. He was pretty flaky.
Well, in reality, all of you wanted to go home. He was just voicing it.
Yeah, he was wanting it a lot more than all the other guys. The other guys pretty much accepted it. We had one guy that absolutely wanted to go. He was only 17. His mother had to sign a release for him, Michael Ball. So he couldn't go to Vietnam because he's only 17. He's the only guy. He went to Germany. I was in Vietnam, probably 3 months. And my company come in on, we'd stay out in the field for 2 weeks at a time, patrolling and looking for the NVA. And then you got to go back up on the fire base and stay in a relatively dry bunker and eat hot food and get all your little wounds and bumps and boils and things taken care of at the battalion aid station. Our mess hall had a series of steps down to it. It was built right on top of a mountain. I was going down the steps to get something to eat, and who do I see standing there? Michael Ball. He finally turned 18 and got to go to Vietnam. A month later, he blew himself up, and a friend of mine setting out a Claymore.
Gee.
So
Wow.
I don't know. I wasn't there when it happened. It was probably, I guess I was as a sniper then, so I was out probably with a different company, but that pretty good kid. I just knew him by his nickname. We called him Blue, but they said he was showing Ball how to set that Claymore up, and it went off for whatever reason. I don't know. I assume Ball, being a new guy, probably screwed up somehow. Yeah, that kept you pretty aware of everything when you're setting out a Claymore with a tripwire on it.
Yeah.
We used a flashlight battery for the electrical source. It only takes like a half a volt of electricity to set off a electrical blasting cap. GIs are pretty ingenious. You got to have insulation on your tripwire. So you take 2 spoons, drill 2 holes in each one of them. You break your Claymore wire. You have a 50-foot of Claymore wire. You break one of those in 2 and strip some wire off. And loop one end through one spoon, one end through the other spoon. You take the spoons and put them so the concave parts are touching where you want your contact to the wires. take a rubber band it down to act as a spring, and you take another spoon and break the handle off. And that you put
Jesus
in between put it in between the two spoons to keep it from going off. And in the other end of that spoon handle, you drill a wire hole and you tie your trip wire into that, tie the other end across the trail, go back down there. You never carry your battery with you while you're doing this because you're wet. It could complete the circuit and you'd be right in front of your own claymore. Then you go back down to the other end of the wire. And since you use part of your 50 foot up, you're probably 40 feet from a claymore. You lay down, hide the best you can, and hook your power source up and hope it doesn't go off. And then the hairy part is you got to go out the next morning at daylight and pick them up. You hope you remember where you put the damn thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a claymore is a devastating weapon. It will, I don't know, I was told it would cover just about every square foot of a football field or something when it goes off. We killed a bunch of cows one time. We knew that night that the NVA would come in to butcher them and take what meat they could off of them. So we daisy chained 3 claymores together. You set out 3 claymores and you put detonation cord with blasting caps, or they're designed to be hooked together. We hooked 3 claymores together like that, put tripwire on a cow leg, heard that mess of claymores go off in the middle of the night. We went up there. Next morning we had 7 dead NVA. We must have killed every one of them because their weapons and everything are still there. They were great at policing up weapons and stuff when they had somebody get killed. So there was nobody left to pick anything up.
Do you have a good barbecue that night?
Well, not that night. We did eat water buffalo one time. You're supposed to carry at least 3 days of sea rations on you. Most guys always carried at least 4 because resupply is pretty iffy. Bad weather and stuff. We went, I think it was 19 days one time without resupply. We were all getting pretty hungry, eating creamer and stuff out of our coffee packets. And did kill a water buffalo and broke open all of our claymores to cook it with the C4. You can set C4 on fire and it burns really hot. It also comes in a 2-pound bar. Looks like a big giant candy bar with an olive green wrapper on it. You break off a piece the size of a large marble, set it on fire, and you instantly heat up a canteen cup full of hot chocolate or coffee or whatever you wanted to try to make out of sea rations. But don't stomp on it because then it would detonate and take off some toes. So.
You guys are like freaking MacGyver.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we did MacGyver. We invented a better mousetrap up on the fire base. We didn't have mice, we had rats, and they'd probably whip most American cats.
Yeah.
So we'd take a steel ammo can, take the lid off of it. Kind of preferred a 50 cal can. They were probably 18 inches long by 10 inches deep, 7 or 8 inches wide. Punch a hole through each end so you could hook your tripwire up to it. Instead of having a claymore, we'd just leave a blasting cap in there, hooked to the tripwire with buttered up with some cheese or something. Mr. Rat comes in and grabs the cheese and it got a blasting cap in his mouth and blows his head off. We had a lot of fun doing that. Till one night a guy was sitting on his bunk and we had that rigged up under his bunk and it filled the back of his legs full of blasting cap shrapnel and rat brains. So they suggested we not do that anymore.
Like we're just training.
GIs are inventive, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you got to pass the time and keep your brain going. I can't imagine.
Yeah, that probably had a lot to do with it.
Was there a lot of downtime, or were you always on the go?
Oh, out in the field, you're on the go. Yeah. You have 9 ambushes. We did a lot what we called hooch raids. If we had like a half to full moon, like I said, there's always hooches in our area with civilians. They might be a mile or two in between each one. It wasn't like they were densely packed or anything, but the NVA, they like to sleep out of the weather too. So when there's enough moonlight to see good, as a volunteer thing, I apparently had a little better night vision than a lot of people, or was adventurous or something. But we had one E5 Wild Bill Merrill. He loved to go on hooch raids. So there'd be 5 or 6 of us every night take off on a hooch raid when we had enough moonlight to see by it. We caught one guy in that was the most valuable piece of equipment his GI had out in the field was a hammock. The Army was supposed to issue jungle hammocks. I never seen a US made hammock. We got all of our hammocks off dead NVA, which their hammocks were really light and nice. And anyway, we caught this one guy asleep in his hammock, and 3 or 4 guys probably put about a 6-round burst each in him. And our Lieutenant Foley is a really good guy and didn't have a hammock, so we got the hammock for him. Unfortunately, it was severely blood-stained and full of bullet holes. So he took the little sewing kit I was talking about and sewed up all the bullet holes. And there's lots of old, what we called French mansions. Probably at one time they were out there, all abandoned. Some of them had fantastic brick courtyards, built on some 3 levels, a lot of fruit trees around on them and stuff. So Lieutenant Foley, he was tickled to death of his hammock. He didn't have to sleep on the ground in the mud anymore. But unfortunately, he slung it right over the courtyard where it had about a 6-foot drop down to the next courtyard. There's I think it was a lemon tree growing there. Tied it to that lemon tree that was on the lower level, and another tree that was on the upper level. The middle of the night, we heard a rip, and damn! His hammock tore in two and dumped him about 6 feet on a brick courtyard. So he wasn't very good at sewing. He probably should have had old Mama Son fix that hammock up for him.
See, these are all the things about that you don't hear about just trying to survive and keep your sanity in wartime.
So Dale, you mentioned that book Chicken Hawk earlier. And I know you gave that to me to read when I was a teenager. And Brian, if your listeners can get hold of that book, I would highly recommend it to understand just a little bit more about what we're talking about tonight, because it is a great book. It's about a Huey pilot in Vietnam. So yeah, I would definitely highly recommend that book.
Chicken Hawk?
Chicken Hawk.
Yeah, and I also wanted Dale get a picture of your shadow box, because as you were explaining it, we're not going to have video here. This is all radio.
Yeah.
But and then
Colleen's working on that.
As you're explaining it, then people can see that. But what did you, from the time you went in to the time you got out?
Well, I didn't think I changed it any, but I apparently did. First thing I noticed, my parents come down to Reading to pick me up at the Greyhound bus station. I don't know if you've ever been in the Reading Greyhound bus station. It's about the size of my house, which ain't very big.
It's true.
And I was the only soldier in there in uniform, and they both walked right by me, went back in the little restaurant part looking around. I'm like, what? I'm the only one in uniform in here. They come back out. But
they didn't recognize you?
Apparently not. They would never admit they didn't, but I mean, they walked within 4 feet of me. So that, yeah, you're pretty jumpy when you come home. I know Mom and Dad lived right across the street from the high school. First couple times I was there when the bells went off over at the school, get down on the floor and crawl under the table. That got some kind of quizzical looks from mom and dad, but they never said anything. Oh, it's funny. I think almost everybody that, well, maybe in a infantry unit, there's something they like to do and they come home. I'd go out and sit in my car when it was raining and just watch it rain. It couldn't get to me. I could stay dry, just sit in the car and watch it rain. My brother, when he come home, he liked to flush the toilet. No such thing as a flush toilet in Vietnam.
But just the creature comforts that we're so used to that you.
Oh, everything, everyday things you take for granted. You have
Right.
absolutely none of that in a infantry company. That's
Absolutely.
even
And
up on the fire base, didn't have showers or anything. You fill a 5-gallon bucket full of warm rainwater or something with holes poked in it, and hope the water didn't run out before you got all the soap rinsed off of you.
yeah, that I think that would probably, like you said, the elements, dealing with the elements would be probably one of the biggest challenges. Because I think about, well, you just think about your body temperature. If that changes 2 or 3 degrees, how screwed up you are.
Oh yeah. Heat exhaustion and heat stroke was a big problem. Never did bother me for some reason. I mean, other guys, no different than me, no weaker, that's for sure. I mean, it would tear them up sometimes. Yeah, it's hard to describe the weather. You always hear getting off the airplane. It's like when you first get there, like walking into a furnace or something. That's absolutely the truth. The smells are foreign. I wouldn't say they were bad. A lot of guys always think about burning shit, which they did, for half 55-gallon drums is what you crapped in, and they'd have to drag him out and fill it full of diesel and set it on fire and keep stirring and burning. I never got assigned to any of those details, but you got that odor around. It's not bad. It's just a different smelling diesel, but the wood and everything over there gives off a different smell than wood at home. The food, back my first day in the field, the Delta company, old boy, the old timer come up to me and asked me if I was willing to walk point. And I, being as dumb as I was, I assumed that's what the new guy's job was going to be. I didn't think I had the authority to say no. So yeah, he danced a little jig and he said, well, I'll walk your slack for you to kind of teach you what's going on. We hadn't gone a couple 100 yards. We were on a pretty open hill with an old tank trail on it. Looked like a hill had been napalmed a lot and burned off the vegetation, kind of low scrub growing back. I started smelling something. So I stopped and asked that guy, I said, ask him what I was smelling. He said, I don't know. I can't smell it. He says, what does it smell like? I said, well, almost like something rotten, And he said, well, you're probably smelling Vietnamese. They put this fish sauce on the rice. It's kind of rotten fish. We didn't go down the hill over the crest of the hill another 100 meters, and there were about 8 NVA down at the bomb crater filling canteens up with water. And he tried to lie them up to us. He wasn't sure they were Vietnamese or South Vietnamese or NVA, the full uniform packs and weapons and everything. So they started kind of milling around. I said, hell with it. I put about a 10-round burst down in there amongst them. Never hit anyone. I give one a good shower, and I made at least 2 of them barefooted, run right out of their Ho Chi Minh sandals, which were made out of old car tires and inner tubes. So they had sore feet after I got done with them, but never found any blood trails or anything. But yeah, that was my first day in the field. For some reason, I guess I was too new to be afraid. I was just pretty excited. But yeah, that's some of the smells you smell. I think your senses, you're strung wired tight, like they say, like a banjo string or something. You're looking for ambushes and booby traps. And I guess that's one of the things that's a source of PTSD. There's some sort of gland in your brain that isn't supposed to be working that hard. And the average grunt spent over 300 days in the field. So you're out there 300 days out of 1 year, at least more than that. I forget the exact number. Just wired, strung tight, waiting for something to happen. It's a wonder we didn't all have ulcers. But yeah, the weather, it'd rain like, I don't know. I've never ever seen it rain that hard in the States. You could hear it coming through the jungle canopy probably for 500 yards before it got to you. Big raindrops hitting the canopy leaves. So you had time to try to get ready for it. They issued us rain jacket, but they were little short-waisted things, and you put them on, even if what was keeping you dry, you'd start sweating inside of them. So it's just extra weight. Most guys threw those away because they didn't do any good. At night, you usually had somebody, your hooch mate, button two ponchos together and string them up with bootlaces. And two men could sleep under that relatively dry. When you got in country, is issued an air mattress. We call them our rubber ladies. It was raining so hard one night, my air mattress actually floated about halfway out of our little hooch, and the pretty good stream of water running through there. Being a dumbass new guy I was, he told you when you go out on patrol, make sure you pull the plug on your air mattress. Don't leave any air in it because it'll heat up and break all the seams out. So I figured, well, I could let half the air out, right? Because you got to blow them things up by lung power alone. I come back, it looked like a great big green sausage laying there. So I had a air pad with no air in it after that. I got a hammock off of a guy. Yeah, when you're walking point and you bust an ambush or something, and if you kill somebody, the point man gets to go through his belongings and take what you want. So that's how I got my first GI bush hat. The guy had a excuse me, brand new bush hat on and a brand new hammock. And is a tradition in my platoon, might have been the whole company. One of the old guys took that guy's AK-47 and jacked the round out of the chamber and give it to me, and he said, "This is a bullet that had your name on it. As long as you keep this with you, you won't get hurt." So that's what you can't hardly see it in that shadow box thing I got. That's that AK-47 round on a bootlace that I wore that the whole time I was in Vietnam. And the guy must have been right. I never got wounded or anything. My son Walter, when he went to Afghanistan, I gave him that, so he wore that the whole time he was in Afghanistan. And story about that, you couldn't bring anything back from Afghanistan. They confiscated that round from him, and he told the guy that confiscated the story and everything. Guy says, "Well, you can't take it home." So he walked over in the formation, said a few minutes, guy walked over and slipped it in his hand, let him bring it home. So that was pretty nice of him.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't realize that Walter had served in Afghanistan.
Yeah, he was a Mark 19 gunner. That's an automatic 40 millimeter grenade launcher on what they call the MRAP. I forget what MRAP stands for now. Something armored personnel deal.
Well, if the military is good for one thing, it's good for acronyms. If
Yeah.
Your service, what you learned, or that maybe that we haven't touched on, or I haven't asked you, or Mark hasn't asked you, that you want to share with people.
Oh, I don't know, covered a lot of it. One thing I appreciate that the American people were welcoming our Afghan and Iraqi vets home. We never got a bit of that.
That's for sure.
Later years, when the Iraqi vets started coming home, people started trying to welcome Vietnam vets home. It actually pissed me off. I thought to myself, where were you 40 years ago?
40 years ago, yeah.
Is that because of the horrible propaganda that the media?
The stigma that?
Oh,
the
yeah,
media.
back then, I mean, well, you saw the riots up in Seattle and Portland a couple of years ago. Back then, they had riots in every major city that made these recent riots pale by comparison. It never happened to me. A lot of the vets, there'd be groups of protesters waiting for them at the airport, throwing bags of shit at them and spitting on them and giving them the finger and everything else they could do. So
Is it because the media hated the war so bad that you were just, because I mean, people, if you have half a brain, you know that the soldiers are the ones that are doing the real sacrificing. It's not the politicians
yeah,
who cause this crap. They're not out there doing it. And people, I think
yeah.
people know that now, but maybe they didn't then. Is that why you think?
Well, I don't know. Just a lot of people got too much time on their hands, and they like to raise hell just for the sake of raising hell, I guess. But
Yep.
you and Mark know as well as I do, this area up here is pretty patriotic bunch of people.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
This right around the Intermountain area, which I consider the Intermountain area from, say, Bernie to Alturas, is what they call real vet heavy. A lot of vets have moved into this area just to get away from people in general.
yeah.
Mhm.
The little cemetery here in MacArthur has well over 200 veterans buried in
Oh,
it.
jeez.
Which
didn't
is
know that.
that's a huge for those that don't know.
Yeah.
That community is very small, very very small.
Yeah, I know. The American Legion Auxiliary ladies, they asked me to help them make a list of Vietnam vets from this area. And so I started thinking of all the people I could, went over to the high school and looked at the graduation pictures to jog my memory. I think I come up with 206 Vietnam veterans just from
Oh,
Bernie to Big Valley.
Wow.
jeez.
I got a list here I made up from Fall River High School. There was at least 5 guys were killed in Vietnam from Fall River High School. And one other guy that was married to a girl from Fall River, he was from Montgomery Creek.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of guys from the school that's never graduated. Much more than, I think 93 people was the biggest graduating class they had in Fall River.
Yeah. I think we had 58.
Yeah,
Or
yeah. I
less
think
than that. Was it-
my class, I think, was the second largest class. We had 91, I think.
Jeez. So, Dale, not to open up another can or open up another hour worth of talking, just your rough guesstimate, or maybe you even know, how many POWs are not accounted for still?
POWs. How many? Mark's asking how many
POWs.
POW. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. 20, at least 2,500 kind of sticks in my brain. Has to be more than that. I believe there's probably 1,500 troops that are unaccounted for.
Hmm.
Kind of a little side note on that was pretty cool. My brother, he's kind of a computer geek, and I give one of my dog tags away, and the other, and I spent 10 days in the hospital in Da Nang with malaria. Naturally, the rear area people are notorious thieves. So I finally kind of healed up from that, went to get my clothes out of these little open lockers they had in. Somebody had stole all my clothes, and my dog tag that was in my boot was in one of them. Anyway, Dwight, he said, I didn't know you were in the Marine Corps. And I said, well, I didn't either. Why do you say that? And there's a POW MIA accounting office in Hawaii, and they had a list of these people bought over 1,400 dog tags from a street vendor in Da Nang. They thought it might help locate some MIAs, and my dog tag was in there. And he asked me if I wanted it back, and I said, sure. So, I mean, within 2 days, that office has a big, long name. I had it like in next day mail with a really nice letter from him thanking me for my service. And
But was it for
here's
the
my,
for the Marines though, or was it for
well,
the
I don't
Army?
know. I don't know where they got the Marines. It says U.S. Army right on
Oh,
the
okay.
dog tag, and has your either your service number or social security number. Mine had my social security number and got your full name and everything. But yeah,
Nice.
I still have that in my safe over here. Take it out and read it every now and then. Kind of
Good.
brings a tear to my eye.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's a significant, more than a significant part of your life.
Yeah.
You know, and to see what you have seen, I can't even imagine what you saw
No.
and what that does to you.
So Dale, just honestly from the heart, I want to thank you for your service and for your sacrifice that you made. I know I've told you this before. I'll tell you, I'm sure in the future again. But man, I love you. And I appreciate you coming on here and excuse me, and for giving us your time for this. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, like you said in the beginning, if you're gonna send these young men into war, you need to get the hell out of the way and let them do it and get out.
Yeah. Yeah, the politicians need to stay out of it. Just tell the generals, here's what we want done, go do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Here's the
there's
blueprint. Go do it.
you guys live pretty close to it back there. Not extremely close, but Angel Fire, New Mexico has a Vietnam memorial there. Started out this doctor, I think his last name was Westfall, and his son was I believe, a Marine in the lieutenant platoon leader in the Marine Corps. He got killed in Vietnam. So Dr. Westfall, he took a can full of New Mexico soil. When you get killed, the military, if they can, they have the exact map coordinates of where it happened. So he went back to Vietnam as close to the ambush site as he could find and dumped out the soil from New Mexico and brought a can of soil from Vietnam home and built a little chapel as a memorial to his son. And veterans started hearing about it, and there literally hundreds and hundreds of New Mexico vets started visiting it. Word got out, then thousands and thousands. He had a picture of his son up on a shelf, and where the sun reaches a certain point at a certain time of the year, he's got a window in the shape of a cross that would shine right on his son's picture. So these vets started giving him pictures. So I think they put up about 7 or 9 pictures. His son's picture stays there all the time, and people send pictures and what information they can of friends and relatives and stuff that got killed in Vietnam, and they change them out every, I don't know, week or 3 days. So I sent a picture of my cousin that got killed back to him. I don't know, I suppose they put it up, but then like the federal government got involved with it, and they built they got a Huey mounted there, and bronze statue of a GI, an RTO, as a matter of fact, by the Huey. Got like a museum, and show footage from the actual GIs in Vietnam and stuff. And everybody that told me about that said, yeah, you be prepared to cry when you go see that. Aline, she had the same misconceptions about GIs being baby killers and everything. Went there and they showed movies, medics and stuff, doctoring little kids and old mama sons. Yeah, I cried for a while, but Aline, she took her about 3 days to get over it. So if you get a chance, go see that.
And what's it called again?
It's Angel Fire Vietnam
it's-
Veterans Memorial, New Mexico.
Okay.
yeah.
We'll put a
I just-
link to that.
I just pulled it up. It's the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, originally known as the Vietnam Veterans
Yeah.
Peace and Brotherhood Chapel. Developed as a memorial by Gene and Dr. Victor Wistfall following the death of their son, U.S. Marine Corps First Lieutenant Victor David Wistfall III, to honor the memory of their son.
Yeah, another little sidebar to things. My cousin that got killed, I knew they divided Vietnam up into what they called I Corps, 2 Corps, 3 Corps, and 4 Corps. And I was in I Corps, and Norman was killed in I Corps. I knew that. And I never found out till just a couple of years ago that he was on the exact same fire base I worked out of. And I'm pretty sure I walked right through the ambush site where he was killed. There was a place there, you could tell there was quite a firefight just from the piles of old brass and battle wreckage, I guess you'd call it. Pieces of rucksack and uniform and boots and stuff that, they put it all in a pile and destroy it because it's no good, but they don't want. I would almost guarantee that's where Norman got killed. Nui Luxon was the name of the little village there, name of the fire base. Well, we called it LZ Center. We had 3 fire bases. There was fire support base east, fire support base center, and then west. And east was too high of a mountain. They had trouble resupplying it because of the weather and everything, so they abandoned it. That left LZ Center and LZ West. And then we had part of our division on LZ Marianne. You might have heard of it. That's the last American fire base to get pretty much overrun. I had pulled bunker guard on that fire base at one time because they were all short-handed. Probably a month after I was there, it got overrun. They had a South Vietnamese unit supposedly guarding part of the bunker line, and they let NVA sappers in, and they were throwing satchel charges in all the command bunkers and everything. There's I don't know, 76 GIs wounded and 20 or 30 killed, I guess. And it's kind of funny. Bob Powell come by the house one time. He had a EMT with him, and Bob introduced me. The EMT was a Vietnam vet. I said something about LZ Marianne. He said, "You knew where Marianne was?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd pulled bunker guard there at one time." He said, "Well, I was a medic on the first helicopter that landed there after they got overrun." So quite a coincidence.
We have no idea, and it's easy to live here in America and have so many freedoms and to live such easy lives. We have no clue how fragile that really is. And you've seen the ugly side of communism and what it does to countries, what it does to people, and we don't have a clue here. And we need to hear these stories. Otherwise, that's why you got so many people that hate America, because they just don't understand. I don't think they are truly doing it to be assholes. I just don't think they get it.
Yeah. I think Vietnam especially really gotten a bad rap with all these crazy movies like Platoon, and
Yeah.
I think all the ones I saw, Hamburger Hill, about the
Yeah.
101st Airborne would probably be most realistic. I would say it's probably way overdone on but those guys did try attack that hill 10 times. We had a hill kind of like that. We only attacked it once, and they decided we didn't need to go up there and see what was up there after all. So yeah, Bravo Company took a pretty good hit out of that, and then Delta Company. Fortunately, I was a sniper. I wasn't. My old company, Delta Company, their helicopter landed on a booby trapped LZ.
Oh, geez.
Lieutenant got killed outright. I don't know if the medic, big guy, I think he lost both legs and an arm. I don't know if he lived or not. Something like 19 other guys were hit, wounded in various degrees. And Bravo Company, I happened to be with them. Resupply helicopter come in, and little NVA dude put an RPG in the side of it, killed both door gunners and screwed up the pilots real bad. Yeah, there was definitely something on that hill that they didn't want us seeing, and whoever was in command decided we didn't need to get chewed up bad enough to go up there just to abandon it like they did Hamburger Hill, probably.
Wow.
Somebody had some brains anyway. Oh, I was just gonna say, I did have some excellent officers. The better of the bunch were two were ex-special forces. One was our company commander, and one was a platoon leader. And then Captain Hansen, our company commander, when I first got in Delta Company, he was a ranger. I would have followed him anywhere he wanted to go. He took over the ranger company at Chu Lai about the same time I went to sniper school. I asked him, I said, if I could go to the ranger company with him. He said, well, I'd have to get ranger qualified. I said, well, I have to go home to go to ranger school. He said, oh no, we qualify you right here in Vietnam. And I didn't think I wanted to be jumping out of airplanes in Vietnam, getting jump wings and stuff. So I didn't go, but I probably wasn't tough enough to do it anyway. You gotta be a pretty tough guy to get through ranger training. So,
Yeah.
but we worked with rangers a few times. They were all good guys. None of them thought they were any better than anybody else. For most part, they were very modest for all the training they had to go to and what they did in Vietnam.
That's the kind of people you want around you that are humble.
That's for sure.
So Dale, is there anybody that you want to give kind of a shout out by name that helped train you or that is still around? I mean, I know obviously your brother.
Yeah, my one of my best friends still is to this day is Bert Weimer. He lives in Grass Valley. We've kept in touch all these years. We were in basic training together. Then he went to Fort Knox to armor school, I believe, at Fort Knox. And I managed to hook up with him a couple times in Vietnam. It doesn't matter what you train for, the Army will put you where they want when you get there. So they put him in an infantry company, which happened to be one of our sister battalions. As a sniper, we got to go back to Chu Lai 3 days every month to have gunsmith work on our weapons and re-zero them and everything. And the only way we got there, we would fly from our fire base down to Bert's fire base and then catch another helicopter or truck back to Chu Lai. And I just happened to get lucky twice. Bert's company was in from the field pulling bunker guard there. So I got to look him up, got a couple pictures of us. My squad leader, Roddy Hopkins, it took me about like I said, about 35 years to find him. He was from Dallas, Texas area. He died here a couple of years ago of brain cancer. Right now, Bert, he's suffering from Parkinson's disease. Got another guy that I was in the same company in basic with him, and then different platoon, and then we ended up in Vietnam in the same company, different platoons. I transferred out of Delta Company into Echo Company. I become a sniper. He got out of Delta Company into Echo Company as 4-deuce mortar, then a company clerk. Kept in touch with him all these years. He lives in Crescent City, retired school teacher. Those are the 3 I've kept in touch with. The reason I don't know where any of the others are really is guys that asked me for my home address when I went home. They wanted to keep in touch, and about the first 3 guys that did that got killed or wounded real bad. So I got kind of a superstition about giving guys my home address. So just one of those things, they don't have my address, and I neglected to get theirs for whatever reason. I've tried to find some of them. One real good friend of mine, Jerry Wisdom, is from Murfreesboro, Arkansas. I don't know if he survived or not. He was on a helicopter that got shot down. I heard he got hit something like 9 times. I've called back to every Wisdom I could find in around Murfreesboro, either Tennessee or Arkansas. I called both places. Finally got hold of a wife to Jerry Wisdom and explained to her what I was trying to do. She started laughing. Apparently her husband was way too young to be in Vietnam. So yeah, she was very helpful trying to hook me up with some other people, but never did get in touch with him or hear what happened to him, other than he got the crap shot out of him.
Well, maybe we can help you find some of these through like the social media or
Yeah,
like Ancestry or like
I got some other name, Wild Bill Merrill. I got a picture of him. He's got that wild curly blonde hair like Freddie Chapman's daughter. No matter what you do to it, and a great big huge bushy mustache. He loved walking point. He got his foot blown off by a booby trap. He lived in Santa Monica. Don Custer, he got hit by the same booby trap, took some shrapnel through his lungs, but he come back to the company. I don't know where he lived. I think he might have been from Missouri. But yeah, it's kind of funny. I went to the airport. One of the RTOs that was in Delta Company, old Blackjack Ketchum, he claimed to be a direct descendant of the outlaw Blackjack Ketchum. He drove me to the airport in a Jeep. He was RTO in Delta Company. I started crying like a baby. I was leaving the best people I ever knew in my life. Yeah, there's a good book about Delta Company actually and how it got its name. It's Through the Valley by Lieutenant Colonel Humphreys. He was in Vietnam. He was a company commander of Delta Company 67 and 68. He lost an eye to mortar round, RPG, something. You never really know what hit you when you get hit. Anyway, he managed to stay in the service even though he only had one eye, and come back to the battalion. I guess he is a major. He's a major when he come back to the battalion. I remember seeing him around there. And then anyway, he wrote a really good book about his time in Vietnam, and I'd highly recommend reading it.
and what's it called again?
Through the Valley.
Through the Valley. Okay.
Is that
by Lieutenant Colonel I got it. I think I might have. Well, let me look real quick in my bookshelf. It's right here. I might have the author and everything. It's right here somewhere. I'll find it.
You said James Humphreys.
Yeah, I think that might have been his first name. All I knew him was Sir.
So I see a Through the
And
Valley, Vietnam, 1967 through 68
yeah,
by
about the hill fights.
James Humphrey.
He's from down on the Gulf Coast in Texas is where he lives. Yeah, I'd highly recommend you read that book.
Well, Dale, again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I haven't talked to you for over 30 years, so it's good to talk to you again.
Yeah, I see you got a little gray in your whiskers since I seen
Well,
you last.
53 will do that to you.
Yeah. Yeah, mine's completely white.
Yeah.
At least it didn't fall out like all my cousins did.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm still, God bless me with that. I still got that. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to fight that. And Mark does too. So, but yeah, thank you so much for sharing these experiences. Cause you know, they're getting lost.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. You got me to talk a lot more than I thought I would, I guess. So.
Well, I figured it would. I figured things would come. I mean, that's a big part of your experience on this planet, and so that's not something you easily forget. I wouldn't think so.
Sometimes it seems like it was 50 some years ago, and sometimes it seemed like it was yesterday. So.
Well, I can't imagine, going through that kind of horror, the things you see, and wondering if you're going to be dead every 5 seconds. I can't imagine that kind of stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. These politicians should all have to do that. They'd
Yeah, they all should have to
reconsider
serve.
a lot of their wars they get in. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But they don't. So
No, that's for sure.
So, alrighty, sir. Well, we will. I'll let you guys know when it's all wrapped up and ready to go and live, and send you ways to listen to it if you want, and then you can to hear yourself talk about it again if you want.
Okay. Yeah. Sound like a plan.
Alrighty, Dale. Thank you so much again.
Thank you again for listening to the Parish to Thought Show. We would love your comments and feedback on our website at briankeithparish.com/feedback. If you love or hate what you hear, please give us a rating on whatever platform you find us. You're still here? Click on the next episode for more from the Parish to Thought Show. Hey, thanks again for listening to the show. I am so grateful you're here and continue to support my efforts. We're doing something a little new. It's called Ask Brian Anything. If you have questions, comments, concerns about any previous episode, or just want to know my perspective on anything, please send those to parishpodcast@gmail.com. That's PARRISH podcast@gmail.com, and I'll feature them on an upcoming episode.